This podcast is brought to you by the Clare and Gilbert Valleys Council. Hello and welcome to episode 32 of the Clare Valley Podcast, bringing you a snapshot of all the latest news from the Clare and Gilbert Valleys Council over the past month. I'm your host, Annabelle Homer. And it's been a very busy couple of months for Council as the draft annual business plan and budget for 2024-25 has been out for public consultation. And Council has given it the final tick of approval at its latest meeting on July 30th. So, of course, we'll be catching up with CEO Dr Helen Macdonald to get all the latest on budget details, but also lots of non-related budget updates to share with you as well, including the Hutt River Boardwalk closure, the Old Town Hall update, why is it still surrounded by scaffolding, and is there any work being undertaken into the future, solving our rental market shortage using non-profit entities. Also, someone of high importance within Council has put in their resignation, so we'll find out who that is. Also, how often do you visit your local library? Do you still borrow books or do you use the library for another reason? Attending events, participating in computer skills training, visiting the Justice of the Peace perhaps? Well, the role of libraries has changed markedly over the years. There's so many services that our libraries offer to the community that you may not be aware of. We'll catch up with Library Manager Catherine Driscoll later on in the episode. Also, we are all immersed in Olympic fever at the moment with our athletes battling it out over in Paris. Well, the Clare Valley dabbled in its own Olympic fun over the school holidays, but it was more the prehistoric Olympics. But first, all the latest from Council headquarters, let's find out more from Dr Helen Macdonald. As I said earlier, Council's been immersed in budget and annual business plan deliberations, with both documents being out for public consultation over the last month. Well, Council has finally adopted these documents and the CEO is pleased that Council can now move on with projects.
Well, very exciting that we've actually got the budget and business plan adopted. It's fantastic because we've got our works and infrastructure guys in particular sitting waiting to press the button to put tender documents out, because it's so critical that they get their work started, because a lot of the roadworks particularly, but other things as well, are dependent on weather. And so it's really critical that we get those tenders out, we get them accepted and the work undertaken, and a lot of it happens over Christmas. So, yep, it's great that we've got it through, and it's been a very lengthy process this year. I mean, it's usually lengthy, but it's been more lengthy than previous.
Why has it been more lengthy than previous years?
Well, partly because some of our key staff resigned through the first part of the year. Our Director for Corporate Services retired, to tell the truth, and our Manager of Accounting also resigned to take up a position at Wakefield, and they were really just filling in for somebody that was on maternity leave anyway. We had an accountant for like 1 day a week for the first 4 or 5 months of this year, so that made putting a budget together very challenging, and having a changeover of staff at that in sort of April, May was, just added another dimension of a challenge to putting together the annual business plan and budget.
Well, let's talk about the budget and the plan. Let's talk about rates firstly. Let's recap on what people are to expect this coming financial year.
Council, as it went out for consultation during the month of June, has not changed the rate increase, so sits at 4.3% plus growth. So that's what people can expect, and that's just overall. Obviously, what comes in on people's individual rate notices will vary from that to some degree, because it's dependent on the change in valuation to your particular property. But
and speaking of that, in particular property and the valuations, which properties are up on rates and which ones are down?
So the biggest valuation increase has been in primary production. So that's gone up. Residential has gone up a little bit as well, but nowhere near as much as primary production. Unfortunately, our industrial and commercial areas have gone down in valuation. So they're the big changes.
Council has also set the minimum rate at $755, up from $730, with 11.64% of properties on minimum rates in the Valley. What are ratepayers to expect with the annual service charges this coming financial year?
CWMS, so for your wastewater services, that sits at $496 each property we'll be paying, and then our waste collection service is $255. So not any significant increase for either of those, but nevertheless they're another thing that people will see on their rates notices, along with the Landscape Board's levy, which we have to collect as council.
What's council's expected revenue for this coming financial year?
So we expect our total income to be $21.5 million. So that's what our total income will be. But our actual rates part of that is going to be sitting just a shade under $17 million at $16.9 million. But it's the other bits and pieces of incomes from grants and user charges, etc., which sees our total income getting up to $21.5 million.
And has that income changed from previous years?
Yes, it's gone up really only slightly. It's really probably CPI is probably really where the increases come from.
Now, what is council's expenditure? Because this is quite interesting as to how much it actually costs for a council to run.
So our actual expenditure is a little bit over, or what we're expecting is a little bit over our income at nearly 22 million. So we're looking at 1.5, potentially an increase from our income, but the actual deficit we're looking at when everything is taken into account is just under 400,000.
So that's still significantly healthy for a council?
It's reasonable.
Okay.
It's reasonable. We've been posting deficits for a number of years, and so we really need to move that needle back into a surplus. But I suppose when everything's taken into account, and with, if you're looking at the statement of comprehensive income and expenditure, we actually do have a slight surplus. The total bottom line actually comes just shade under 400,000 as a surplus.
Doesn't give you much room to move though if there's an unexpected expenditure.
No, and we already know that there's going to be a few other hits to the budget. I think what people need to just look at is, what's our income and what is our expenditure and how we're tracking over the long run. And
speaking of expenditure, though, I thought it was really interesting to note that your total capital budget is $6.475 million, and 69% of that accounts to renewal costs. The biggest renewal cost is transport. So that's roads and infrastructure, isn't it?
That's correct. Yes, you basically talk about councils as managing roads, rates and rubbish. And I suppose, and if we broaden out rubbish to include wastewater, then certainly they're significant parts of our budget. But the biggest place that we spend our capital is maintaining our road network. That's really where it all happens, especially for regional councils. That's really, it's a really big part of the expenditure.
In the last episode that we did, you alluded to the fact that there was $1 million allocated to Mystery Road. Sounds all very sinister.
I like that, the Mystery Road. We can now. I'm going to use that for the report when we put it up.
So has it been clarified where this money is going?
No, not yet. Our Works in Infrastructure Department are currently working on that, and so we hope that at our next briefing session with the councillors we'll provide them with a number of options, and we've got I think a couple of rural roads that they could look at, or they could look at doing some roads within townships. So we're giving them some options of roads which we think need to be addressed. Particularly we've got some pretty heavily used roads that, especially during harvest time, which annually get, shall we say, just totally trashed. And so they could be good candidates. I think there's a good tourist route in there that probably should have been sealed quite some time ago. And then there's a few streets that should have been sealed as well. So they're going to get a range of options and they'll have to make a choice.
In a previous episode, you might recall that the Clare Valley Wine, Food and Tourism Centre requested a funding increase in this latest budget of $250,000, and that the annual funding be indexed each year against the March CPI figure. Well, the Centre's request was accepted and they will receive this funding going forward. Just to sum things up with the budget and the annual business plan, what are some of the big things that you're planning on doing this year?
Well, aside from the $1 million mystery road, obviously we've got a whole bunch of resheeting that we're going to be doing. There's not a lot we're doing in stormwater or bridges this year. We usually do a couple of bridges, but we're going a little quiet on that. We're doing a little bit of design work in that area. We've got a bit of stuff to do in playgrounds. So that's probably more exciting stuff for some of our listeners. Is there's some of the soft fall is being done in the Apex Park, and the Rhiney Playground is going to have some new equipment. And I just say, people might think we spend a lot of money on playgrounds, but safety issues in playgrounds is really, really critical. And so everybody pays very close attention to that. We've got some new tiered seating at the valleys. I think that's outdoors where it overlooks the swimming pool. And the Riverton swimming pool, there's a number of repairs to be done on that. That poor old pool was built in the 1950s, and like all its cousins around the country, they're all getting really tired and worn out, and the tiles are falling off and the diving boards are broken. They're showing their age, so there's more work to be done on that. There's a few other things happening around the Watervale playground, the Watervale beautiful grandstand. So we're getting some work done on that just to make sure that it stays together. It's getting a little tired, but it's something that just enhances the environment of Watervale and that little precinct there, which is great. There's going to be a whole lot of tree planting happening in Clare, Riverton, Auburn and Saddleworth. We're doing design work for the Auburn streetscape work. Not as comprehensive as the original concept design, but yes, we will be working on upgrading the footpaths and other parts of the streetscape for Auburn. That's just design work at this point. We'll have some expenditure for Stockport Playground, doing work on disabled car parks in Clare and Riverton. And the RSL building, the history room building at Riverton. So there's a little bit of work to be done on that to make it more habitable. So they're probably the really big things.
Okay. Yeah. And speaking of Riverton, the grant for the refurbishment of the Riverton Community Hall, that wasn't successful?
Unfortunately not. No, we missed out. We can blame Barossa, who got a whacking great $7 million grant to do an amazing extension of their art gallery. But we need to keep in mind they have been trying to get funding for at least 5 or 6 years for that. So big tick that they got that. There is a grant that's just come out from the state government which we'll apply for Riverton. So there's an opportunity still for that. But when it comes to getting grants to do these things, you just got to keep trying and eventually you get there. What we're asking for Riverton is like minuscule compared to what the Barossa is looking for. So chances are we should get a grant for Riverton much sooner because it's a much smaller amount.
Now, non-related budget details, the Clare Town Hall stage has been temporarily fixed and available for use, which is great news. Are there any restrictions to the use of this stage?
Not really, unless you want to put a grand piano on there or something similar where the weight of the item goes down to a really small point. So, for example, if you need to have a grand piano on that stage, you can. You just have to have plates underneath the footing of the piano so that the weight is distributed across the stage so it just doesn't land in a single point. There's no weight restrictions. You can have a dance ensemble on that stage.
A concept design has been done on the refurbishment of the Clare Town Hall. Work on the final design has been put on hold for this financial year while structural works continue on the Riverton Community Hall. The
refurbishment of the Clare Town Hall will be a long-term project. There's lots of things that should be done to it, and so it'll be a project that will obviously require a grant, but also it will probably take time to acquire that grant.
Let's take a look at the old town hall, which has had scaffolding around it for goodness knows how long, and it's a bit of an eyesore being on the main street, and a lot of people have questions about the future of that building. What is happening with that site?
That's a privately owned building, so council has no ability to dictate what happens to that building. But because it's a state heritage building, there is requirements on the property owner to keep it safe and, maintain the heritage integrity of it. Now, council did try and make some efforts because the tower was in danger of collapsing, and so council took the steps it could take to get the property owner to take the steps to ensure that it didn't collapse. They weren't successful, so the matter has been handed over to the state government, or the state government. It's now the state government's responsibility. They've taken the property owner to court, so it's in that process. As far as I know, there's no outcome to that at this point. Obviously, once that's decided, then hopefully we'll see some action. So at this point, all council can do is to ensure that pedestrians are safe, because we have advice that if that tower collapses, it will most definitely land on the footpath and may well go into the street, which is why the two car parks adjacent to the town hall are also not able to be used, and we don't encourage pedestrians to go round them, nor can we put in that infrastructure that you see in the city quite often, where there'll be infrastructure over the footpath, sort of like a cage that you can walk under. Now, if the understanding from the engineer is if the tower collapses, that kind of structure would not prevent a pedestrian being hurt or killed, in fact. The only thing that we can do to protect pedestrians is to stop pedestrians walking in front of that building.
There was a build to rent proposal discussed in the last council meeting as well, where there was a proposal for council to consider taking the opportunity to partner with a not-for-profit housing provider to increase the amount of rental housing in Clare for key workers. Now, we've spoken a lot on previous episodes about the shortage of housing and especially rentals in the Clare Valley. What are the benefits of going in with a non-profit?
It's their business model, basically. So the build to rent program is essentially about having accommodation for key workers. When you know, and we do know because we've been approached several times by the hospital board, is when we know that you don't have accommodation for your key workers, then we need to work out how can we potentially address that. And so going into partnership with a not-for-profit organisation, they do this stuff all the time, so they've got the knowledge about building quickly and providing accommodation, the sort of accommodation that people like to rent. But probably most importantly, they can access government funding to make this happen. And so if Clare can take advantage of that, that will really help our service sector and our business sector to, we're not going to address it overnight, but provide some of that much required accommodation.
So what's the council's role in a relationship with a not-for-profit? What does the council have to provide?
The best thing that council can provide is land. So rather than selling land, is we provide that land, which is, obviously a significant part of building. So if that land is basically gifted to the organisation to then build, and these organisations, they keep those properties for, things like 25 years, etc. So they're there for the long term. They're not looking to build and sell within 2 years or anything like that. They'll be there providing rental accommodation for the long term.
So what did councillors decide?
So at this point in time, they've only decided that for me to do some further exploration in terms of what are the opportunities in terms of land available and what are the pluses, I suppose, and minuses of some of those different lands. What's the impact for council? So that's...
So doing further investigation.
Yeah, so I'll be giving them some more details about what the options are, different locations where this could happen, and then we'll see where we go from there.
Okay, watch this space. Let's look at the future of the Clare Boardwalk along the Hutt River, that timber walkway. Well, I guess near the swimming pool and along Victoria Road.
Behind the valleys.
Behind the valleys. That's a very good way of putting it. Apparently, it's not up to standard. It's closed at the moment and it's deteriorating. Now, there's calls for council to do something about it. They've been given 3 options. What was decided in regards to this boardwalk?
Yeah. So, yes, the boardwalk's been in a bad state for 5 or 6 years. It was identified, I think, 6 years ago that it really should be considered for replacement. At that stage, we did some repairs to it to extend the life, but life is absolutely at an end, which is why we've closed it. It's at risk of actually collapsing, and we do not want that to happen with somebody on it. So council has decided to replace it. So we're now looking at what that would look like, what it should be constructed out of. I think a permapine isn't, which is what it's currently constructed out of, is not a good long-term option, because I think that's been in place for not even maybe nearly 10 years, I think.
It was officially opened in 2010. 14 years old,
Yeah, which is not long for a piece of infrastructure.
It's not.
And so, it needs to be replaced, because I know it's well used by young families particularly, but also there's various events, etc., that happen annually that use it. I think St Joe's school children use it frequently as well, so... And
a lot of families use it.
Yeah, it sits between two parks, and youth use it a lot, because not only is it fun to ride across, but it takes you to the skate park. Unfortunately, it's not in the budget, but we couldn't put it in the budget because we don't know what the cost of replacement is going to be. There was certainly strong encouragement that we look for grants to assist in that replacement, which is absolutely possible. I think the People and Places grants, which an annual grant, is certainly a good opportunity for us to do that.
I heard that you're leaving, Helen. I was at netball doing my canteen shift, and someone told me that the CEO of council has put in her resignation, and I was absolutely shocked. But you've obviously been thinking about this for a while.
Yes, I have. I think when I started, I was only going to be here for a few years, so I've outstayed my own plan, shall we say? Yeah.
So you've enjoyed it more than you thought.
Well, it's hard. It's hard work, but it's you're always trying to get the projects done, get things finished, and then something new starts, and you think, oh, that'll be exciting. So you keep pushing on. I had to decide to draw a line in the sand and say, no, you can't keep doing that. You'll end up being 80 and you'll be still sitting here saying, oh no, I'll just do this one. And it's like, no, I've got a few other things that I'd like to do. So yeah.
And are you going to stay local?
At this point in time, I have no intention of moving away, which could be bad for my successor. I might be a thorn in their side. I think CEOs normally like to think that the predecessor is not hanging around. But anyway, don't plan to annoy them.
And what is the process of hiring a new CEO?
It's actually quite complicated, and it's become more complicated since I first joined local government. So there's quite a lot of legislative controls or requirements that council needs to meet. For example, it must use a qualified recruitment service. It needs to have an independent advisor, so somebody that actually understands about the recruitment and of a senior executive. And it needs to be, a very kind of thorough process. And generally, all the decision making has to happen through the council meeting process. So it's usually a special council meeting. So first of all, they have to call for tenders, and then they have to appoint a recruitment consultant. They also then need to scope out what they're looking for the position. And then there's the process of going out, advertising or finding people to apply for the position. All that process in terms of to getting applications, that can take like several months, and then you need to go through and for this council, all 10 councillors are on the appointment panel. By and large, most councils have a CEO panel that's made up of 3 or 4 councillors and the mayor, or 3 councillors and the mayor, and they do the heavy lifting in terms of doing all that work and then making a recommendation for the councillors. But this council has all the councils involved in every step of the process.
Why? Why this particular council?
That's the choice that this council has always does not like to delegate responsibilities to subcommittees. And the recruitment process, yes, they have to do interviews and then they have to decide, and then presumably if the person's coming from another council, they have to give 3 months' notice from their job. So
you've put your 3 months' notice in, but you're going to stay until there's someone that's been hired.
I've told the council I'm happy to stay until they have somebody that can actually,
You could be here till next year then.
Well, yes, I could be, but I think they'll probably have somebody in place before the end of the year.
I think it's definitely worth maybe doing more of an in-depth chat about you and your life and where you started and where you are now in a future episode.
Right, well, we could look at doing that.
I think so. I think it's a definite. So watch this space, everyone. It'll be more of a profile on Dr. Helen Macdonald coming up in the next couple of episodes, hopefully. Thank you very much, Helen. Hopefully we'll get to chat next month.
We will.
Clare Valley Podcast.
Clare Valley Podcast.
You're listening.
Clare Valley Podcast.
Clare Valley Podcast.
When was the last time you visited your local library? And if you go to the library often, what's the reason? Well, the role of libraries has changed significantly over the last 40 years. Not just a space to borrow books, it's a space that provides so many services to the community. And some of these services you may not even know about. The library manager of the Clare and Saddleworth libraries is Catherine Driscoll. She's been involved in the industry here in the council region for 15 years. I asked her firstly, what gets her excited about working in the library?
I've always wanted to be a librarian. So I had a wonderful school librarian at my school, and I was a library monitor and had the badge and worked with her on reshelving books and covering and all of those wonderful things. And all my way through school, I wanted to be a librarian. So I went straight from high school, straight to university, straight into libraries, and started working as my profession at age of 21, and moved around states and jobs and locations, predominantly in university libraries, but also worked for some time in publishing as well. So I worked with marketing and book supply, which was really interesting from the perspective of book selling.
If you've been working in the industry for that long, you must have seen some changes over the years. So what have been the major changes that you've noticed working in libraries?
I think some of the major changes, of course, has been the increase in electronic books, audio books, the change in format for magazines. It's gone predominantly from a lot of print magazines now to electronic or have merged, and also the development of Australian publications. So we relied an awful lot on American or UK book industry, and the Australian book industry has just taken off in the last 15, 20 years. So that's been a big change. And the importance of libraries to people. So that is becoming a cyclical thing where we probably had a little bit of a downturn, and now once again with the cost of living and the importance of community, libraries have really taken become an important part of the community once again.
Traditionally, libraries have only been about borrowing books.
Definitely.
And that has changed significantly over the years. So it's more about, as you said, community. So what are you doing in this library here that is really getting the community involved and having that community spirit?
It's not just about looking at the people who come in to borrow books. It's also finding those people who don't come in to borrow the books or who can't come in to borrow the books. We are aware that while children tend to come in and borrow books because they come in with their parents, there's that reluctance to come in when you're a teenager or when they're too important and doing other things with sport and whatever else. We try to focus some services for those children. We also try to find information and resources that's going to help people to rediscover the library, reinvigorate that love of reading, or reconnect socially with people as well if they've lost that, whether there's been a change of circumstance for where they live or how they live or who they live with, to be able to come back into this community and find that again.
Well, then how are you doing that? How are you reinvigorating that desire to go to the library?
So there's a range of events or programs that we can run. There's things like a cinematic chat club where they can come once a month and talk about their favourite movies. As a library, we can get the DVDs in for them to borrow, and they can rediscover some of the favourites or rediscover new ones. We have a walking group once a week, every Friday morning, and that's a wonderful chance just to get out and have a walk, meet some new people, afterwards come back to the library, have a cup of coffee and chat with people you may not have ever met or crossed paths with before. We have our events and programs like Book Buddies, which is our book reading group. We have other services and resources that we can provide information for, and we have a JP service. There's a lot of different connections that we can have available for our community that does reinvigorate those.
And you've got a
needs.
teen book club as well.
We have a teen and a tween book club.
Okay.
Yes. Our children can attend a tween book club, And then they actually graduate from that to a teen book club. So we have a movement between those groups, and that's run at both the Clare and the Saddleworth Library.
And how has that been taken up? Yeah, how has that been received?
Well, you won't actually see it advertised or promoted because our numbers are so high that we just physically don't have the space or staffing or resources to do it any more at the moment than we do. So if we promoted or marketed, we would actually just go over quota. So we are looking at ways at the moment of how we continue to work with that popularity and how do we increase it. We want to keep this momentum going. We want to try and keep it in the libraries as much as possible, but we might need to move it to a different venue that allows those extra numbers. We're just not sure yet. But
you have to have it in the library.
I know. It's word of mouth. It's, a friend brings a friend. We have a few teachers in the schools that we work with for children who they think might benefit by coming to the teen or tween book club, who maybe have reached that stalemate of where they're reading and what they could read, or even appropriateness of what they're reading, and we can actually assist them with that. That's really the whole point of it. There's a lot of games and activities and a lot of fun parts of it, and we find out what other people are reading, but it's also about assisting finding that next book, that next read.
You've mentioned the services that you provide, and we've talked about the tween and the teen book club, but you do a lot with parents and little children, the baby bounce, all those types of activities which have been obviously popular for many, many, many years. How do you curb that demand? Because it's a jam-packed on a Monday or Tuesday mornings.
It is a jam-packed. So that runs every week. Again, we run that in both Clare and Saddleworth libraries, and we've got more of a demand for how we run that or where we run it as well. The baby group obviously get to a point in age where they need to go up to the toddler tales, and then we have a new influx of babies coming through. So we work closely, for example, with CAFs. And so we meet the new mums, we introduce them to the idea and the concept of it, and it just continues to grow in popularity. We also change it up every now and again. So it's not just the same thing over and over again. There's a little bit of consistency with the songs and the dancing and the music and the books, but we also mix it up a little bit to meet some of those changing needs and resources too. We're looking at potentially taking this out on the road. So one of the things that we're very aware of is meeting all these different needs. So we've talked about issues with space. We talk about issues with when do we do it and resourcing, and our staff, who are amazing, just continue to want to develop these and to change them again. So, Tammy runs the teen and tween book club, Cody runs the baby bounce and toddler towels, Tamara at Saddleworth runs it down there. We've got these amazing connections already with our staff and the parents and the babies and the children. What do we do? So we have parents who can't make it to these centres, whether the day doesn't suit or whether they don't have transport to come to the services. So let's get out to them. So we're talking about doing some pop-ups.
Brilliant.
Yes. And we tested one of our pop-ups recently at the Junior Expo that we had last week, and it worked very, very well. So that's our next step. Get these services out of the four walls and get it on the road.
Okay, well, that's exciting.
It is exciting.
Oh, that's something for the future. Oh, watch this space, everybody. Let's talk about statistics.
One of my favourite things.
Yes, because I love reading the updates that you give to council on a monthly basis about what's been happening in the library, and I'm just blown away by the stats that you put down on paper, because it's up. It goes up and up and up every single month. So physical library visits per month, Catherine, where are you up to?
So last month we had a total of 6,677 people come through our doors. So that includes Clare, Saddleworth and Riverton library service. So we compare it to the previous year stats. So we've had a 17% increase from July last year.
That's awesome.
Which is amazing. Yes. We feel it. We see it. We hear it. And it's just amazing that it does. It quite often goes up and up and up. So.
And how does that translate to library loans?
Well, library loans are well and truly up as well. So we've had 13,370 loans in June, and that includes physical loans, so materials from our collections, books that we've got in on hold for people, but also digital loans. So our physical loans are around 10 to 12,000 a month, and our digital loans are at the moment around 3,000 a month.
And is that growing substantially, the digital loans?
It is. It really is. So we have two main services that you can borrow electronically, which is BorrowBox and Libby. We see some trends in that as well. So where a book is extremely popular that we may not be able to meet a need immediately for the print version, it might be available electronically.
Okay.
So that does go up. And certainly magazines and people who travel or go on holidays, these are a great option for those. So our use is going up as people become more comfortable using the concept and the technology improving. So being able to have that in colour, in the pages, the same format that you may actually read the hard copy version, it's really accessible.
What's the most popular book in the library?
Some of the books that are really popular in the adult non-fiction is something like Recipe Tin Eats, which is very popular and continues to be popular. Maybe people are borrowing it before they buy it, I don't know, but it's a really popular book. We have consistency with our children's books with, anything by Ando or...
Because I guess books that are being turned into movies
Yes.
would be quite popular, like Colleen
I was going to
Hoover's.
say It Ends With Us.
Ends With
Colleen
Us,
Hoover
yes,
at the
yeah.
moment is extremely popular. Anything that's been on Netflix is extremely popular. There's other social media platforms too, like Book Talk, that just take off and we didn't even see it coming. And
Book Talk.
Book Talk.
Never heard of it.
Exactly. Just like TikTok, but it's all about books. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'll have to get onto that.
I know. That's where Colleen Hoover started.
Really?
Yes.
So Book Talk is part of TikTok?
That's right.
Oh, okay, because I'm
Yes.
not on TikTok, so that's
And
probably
it's a
why.
whole genre. So in the library system, there's actually a category that you can search on, which is Book Talk. Lessons in chemistry took off through that
Yep.
type of thing. So a lot of book groups use it, and a lot of publishers are now using it as well as a publicity program.
The other service that you provide is the home library service. So you talked about taking the baby bounce and those things on the road, but you're already on the road when it comes to delivering books to people who can't get to the library. How has that been taken up?
That is a very popular service, and it's a service that we provide to people, as you said, who can't visit the library. It might be just a temporary thing that, someone's broken their leg and can't come in. It could be that it's somebody who doesn't have public transport, and it could be somebody that has just gone into a nursing home or is in a hospital. So we do have a home library service. So it's based on a profile where people tell us what authors or what type of book or magazines and so on that they are interested in. We take those books to them once a month, and we come and pick them up and change them over for them. And it's a service, as I said, it can be a temporary or it could be a longer term. And it's something that we do as part of taking the library to them.
There's another service that is actually quite unique to the library as well, and it's the Court Short service. Can you explain further about that?
I can. So it's, as I mentioned before, some of the things we do, it's about reaching the members or groups of our community that maybe aren't asking for help or aren't aware of what's available. And one of the things that we have available at the Clare and Saddleworth Library is what we term the Court Short Trolley. And that includes a range of products for people that are caught short while they're here. And it could be sanitary products. It could be, there's some toothpaste that was donated to us by dentists and toothbrushes. We have nappies, wipes, deodorant, combs, Band-Aids. It's a trolley that is available for people who need that support. And it's continually used. We see that as a very popular but important service that we provide. It's totally anonymous. They can go in and use what they need. It's an important part of the work we do in making life a bit more comfortable for people.
And another service which we should not neglect, and that is that you also feed people. Is there anything that you don't do?
I don't think so. Not yet. I'll have to think of that. We'll have to think of the next service. So once again, came out of a identification of some of our was actual teens that were outside the library. It was very cold, and we realised, well, we have a coffee machine available that people could buy from. there's parts of our community or children and even adults that don't have the money to purchase those, who need that, who also need just a space to come and feel comfortable. And it isn't always about them coming in and reading. It's just about coming in and looking part of a community. So we came up with the idea of providing hot chocolate, and we also were provided and now have apples and a packet of chips. So children can come in and have these, and it's at no cost for that first one. If they keep going, there's a $1 cost. But we also have noodles there, and there's also, I should say also, cup of soup for adults. What we have noticed with that, it's been something we didn't actually anticipate, but the number of people, particularly children, coming in and enjoying that means that they are children who may not have come into the library before. We see that they're comfortable coming into the library. They come in groups, they bring their friends. It's cool to come to the library. Inevitably, they sit down, they're on the computer, they start looking at books, they start realising what's here, they stay and they borrow and they come back. But most importantly is that they are comfortable here, and we know that they are safe and they are warm. And for those that may not be able to afford it, yes, they're fed with after-school snacks.
The library has been on the front foot and has been successful in a few grant applications, one to help fund the very successful Early Childhood Expo, which was held in July, and some very exciting initiatives are coming to the library.
So some of these grants were to purchase some resources, and one of the grants, which was an inspiring essay STEM grant, was through the Essay Museum, was to purchase a range of Spark Discovery boxes. So for those who visited the library last year, we had a range of science experiments in takeaway boxes that you could take home, and activities that you could do with your child. They were on loan from the State Library and the Essay Museum and were extremely popular. So this grant actually gives us the ability to purchase those items for our library service. So they'll be available at Clare and Saddleworth Library within the next few months.
And how many are we talking?
We're talking about 40 of them. So they'll be shared between the sites, and they're for different age groups as well, and they range in complexity. So there can be something very simple as an experiment right through to using a microscope or investigating rocks and other things. So yes, there's a lot of different age groups and different science areas that can be covered. We were also successful in the Raising Literacy program. As I said, for the expo, we received a grant towards the festival activities that we did, which allowed us to put money towards the dinosaurs, and we were able to get some really cool animated dinosaurs, puppets with that. And we also received some money from the LBW Trust, which is a group of cricketers who run a program called Backyard Cricket, and they raise money to be put towards community. And we also received just under $5,000 for that particular grant. And we had identified that we wanted to increase our traditional and electronic games. So we have a number of jigsaws and puzzles and other things which are extremely popular in the library. And we've also had requests from some of our agencies to look at running a games club. So we've taken that up, and we received a grant to actually start that program. So watch this space. We are looking at how we do it and when we do it. And we've received some money that we can put towards that.
So that's $5,000.
That's right.
So what type of games are we talking about?
Oh, we could be talking anything from things like Operation, but right through to possibly, a Nintendo Mario Kart approach. So
cool.
It's totally open at the moment. How we roll that out and how we promote it is very exciting.
So when are you expecting to do that?
It's within the next few months as well.
Catherine, you're busy.
It's going to be great.
Well, I'm absolutely in awe with what you guys have created here at the library and what you have brought to our community, and the ideas and the constant flow of ideas of making things new and keeping up with the Joneses, I guess, and the industry generally. And you should be all really proud of what you've done. And so congratulations.
Thank you. And the greatest joy is actually seeing that connection and seeing people enjoy coming in and, you know, children running through the door or, you know, even upset when they have to leave. But it really is. We thoroughly enjoy our job and we really enjoy working with everyone. I can speak on behalf of everybody in the library that we love it.
As Catherine mentioned earlier, the library was in full throttle over the school holidays with the Early Childhood Expo, which the library instigated with help from an innovations grant, the dinosaur scavenger hunt, which saw just under 300 children participate in, a record number, and of course the festival event in the Clare Town Hall, the Dinosaur Olympics. Who came? Well, in fact, over 300 people did, which is a fantastic turnout. Children were delighted with all things dinosaurs, arts, crafts, physical dinosaur Olympic events, and some extremely lifelike dinosaurs, which were a huge hit. Here's a taste of what went on.
I'm here with Brody and Imogen. What do you think of the Dinosaur Olympics?
Amazing.
Amazing. What's your favourite dinosaur?
A triceratop, T-Rex.
What's your best dinosaur sound, Brody? What's a fascinating fact that you know about a dinosaur?
They have sharp teeth. They got wiped out by an asteroid thousands of years ago.
Back one key. I just think it's great for the kids just to get out and mingle and learn something new about dinosaurs. But they're teaching me things actually about dinosaurs today, so it's quite surprising.
It's been the highlight so far for the kids.
Oh, absolutely patting that dinosaur over there. It's a puppet dinosaur. Kids flock to it straight away.
It's probably because of the sound, right?
Sound. Yep, it competes with them.
Okay, well, definitely one of the highlights of the festival event here at the Dinosaur Olympics is the dinosaur puppets.
Katie from Pop Events Adelaide.
Kids are lining up. They're absolutely fascinated. Tell me what you've got here.
Sure, so we've got Terry the T-Rex over there with Ava. We've got Tilly the Triceratops, who looks like she's having a little nap over there. And then we've got Blue the Velociraptor here. And we've also got Daisy the Dilophosaurus back of house, but she's very heavy to carry out. So she's only making a few short appearances.
Oh, so you've got a bigger one that comes out later.
She's a two-man hold, almost.
How did you get into this line of work?
So I've been an event manager for over 20 years, and I went out on my own with my small event family business. And then I think it was about 2 years ago, and I found these guys online overseas, and then my husband came home from work, and I just said, I've spent most of our life savings on dinosaurs and haven't looked back. And he still married me.
When you say a pop-up event, so you just do dinosaurs or do you do a lot of things?
No, so we do a bit of everything. We do council events, we do Aggie's Farm at the Royal Adelaide Show, and we do, lots of just more like pop-up activations. So anyone who's got an idea for a concept of event comes to us and we put it together usually from the ground up. And then we also just do some fun entertainment on the side. We've got a fairy and a dragon and a unicorn coming, and we've got cars and trucks and all different kinds of puppets because they've just taken off.
Did you design them yourself?
I do. So Terry and Tilly are stock standard, but Blue here and the Daisy, the Dilophosaurus, I added a few things to so they kind of match the Jurassic World theme. So the kids do recognise them from the TV and the cartoons a bit more.
So what's your background for you to come up with an idea like this, or even to embrace it and really run with it?
Well, I was the entertainment manager at the Adelaide Show for 5 years, so I kind of dabbled in the entertainment arts there, and then I was the event manager for City Bay Fun Run, so heavy events background, and I just noticed that there was a bit of a lack of affordable kids entertainment, and I've got 2 kids myself now, and I kind of just wanted a dinosaur. I love dinosaurs, and then I saw them and I had to have them, and I've got a bit of a weird history of just not thinking and purchasing things. So
don't we all?
Yes, yeah. So it grew, and now we've got 4 of them, and they're like my other children. My daughter has tea parties with them, and they become part of the family. They're supposed to be in storage, but they always come out.
What's the most frequently asked question the kids ask when you've got all these dinosaurs out?
Well, sometimes even adults ask if they're real, which does concern me a little bit.
Really?
I don't know how to respond sometimes. But probably what they eat. So Tilly is a vegetarian, and Terry and Blue are meat eaters. They're carnivores. Blue it's pretty much this size. So everyone always kind of thought velociraptors were quite big, but they're actually only the size of about a turkey. And only recently they discovered they had feathers. So he's technically not to scale because he doesn't have feathers, which, some dinosaur enthusiasts like to remind me, but I purchased my dinosaur before I realised. I brought them over from North America.
Is that where you got them from?
Yes.
Oh, well, thank you so much for coming to Clare and coming to the festival event. The kids are absolutely wrapped, and I've never seen anything like it. I think it's absolutely fascinating. It's such a crowd pleaser, and I understand they're about to start the dinosaur races.
Oh, okay. I feel like maybe we should get involved. I didn't wear my running shoes, but I'll give it a red hot crack.
I've just popped out of the Clare Town Hall to visit and catch up with a very local resident dinosaur, Barney, which is ridden by Charles, the librarian. Charles, why did the Clare Library decide to put on an event like the Dinosaur Olympics?
Well, we wanted to tie in with the Paris Olympics for 2024, and who doesn't love a dinosaur? So we thought Olympics, dinosaurs, and we want to have dinosaur races, which we're going to start, well, I suppose when I go inside. But yeah, that's to come. They don't know about that yet because I haven't mentioned it to them. But we will be having dinosaur races, if I can convince the others. We just thought that children of all sizes and ages obviously love dinosaurs. I still love dinosaurs, and I'm a little over 21.
Such a brilliant turnout. How many people through the door so far?
Well, according to my little dinosaur counter here, I've got 215 people through the front door, and I missed the first 20, I think. So it's somewhere up around 230 odd people through the front door, and it's only 11:45. So
Not even been an hour yet.
It's not even been an hour. So a fantastic turnout.
Thanks, Charles, and congratulations. Great event.
That was fun, wasn't it, Barney? Yes, it was.
That's the Dinosaur Olympics, staged over the July school holidays, one of the many themed events the library showcases annually and will continue to do so in future. I wonder what theme they're going to go for next time. Always got something up their sleeves. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you would like this podcast to continue, the more subscribers and reviews received will boost its visibility on podcast platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So please, if you have a moment, please rate and review this podcast via either of these apps. I'm Annabelle Homer. It's a pleasure to be here. I'll catch you next time.